Meghan's life was a portrait of modest contentment. She was a diligent worker, leading a fairly ordinary life, until a seemingly harmless encounter with her colleague, Michael, sent her world spiraling into chaos. Michael, initially pleasant and courteous, asked her out on a date one day. But when Meghan politely declined, little did she know that her rejection would trigger a relentless obsession. At first, it was innocuous. Michael's friendly overtures turned into incessant messages and friend requests on her social media platforms. He began tracking her every online move, commenting on her photos and status updates. It was unnerving and uncomfortable, but Meghan chose to brush it off, hoping it would eventually fade away. Then, one fateful day, as Meghan approached her car after work, she discovered something that sent her heart into a frantic dance of terror. Tucked beneath her windshield wiper were unsettling love notes written in a twisted cursive script, professing an infatuation that chilled her to the bone. The love notes became a horrifying pattern in Meghan's life. Every morning, she would find a new one on her car. The messages grew progressively more disturbing, shifting from adoration to possession. "We're meant to be together," they would say, or "Why won't you give us a chance?" Meghan's anxiety escalated with each note, and her sense of safety eroded. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, followed, hunted. Her nights became sleepless, and her days marred by paranoia. She even started altering her routines, taking different routes home from work in a desperate attempt to elude her relentless pursuer. As the weeks passed, the situation became unbearable. Meghan couldn't concentrate at work, and her relationships with friends and family deteriorated as she withdrew into her own cocoon of fear. Every beep of her phone or unexpected knock at the door would send her heart racing. Then, one day, Meghan arrived home to an unnerving surprise. A box of roses, blood red and foreboding, sat on her doorstep. Her trembling hands reached for the note, and her eyes widened in horror as she read, "For the woman of my dreams." There was no signature, but Meghan knew it could only be from Michael. The realization hit her like a sledgehammer. Her stalker had not only invaded her personal space, but also discovered her home address. Panic washed over her as she locked herself in, fearing that at any moment he might emerge from the shadows. That night, Meghan couldn't sleep. The scent of the roses permeated her thoughts like a toxic fog. She knew she couldn't endure this nightmare any longer. The police, she decided, were her only hope. At the police station, Meghan poured out her harrowing story. The officer listened attentively, but eventually delivered a disheartening verdict. Without tangible proof of physical harm, they couldn't take significant action. Meghan was devastated. It felt like the walls were closing in around her, and her desperate pleas fell on deaf ears. She turned to her closest friend, seeking refuge from the ever-present terror. It was there, in the safety of her friend's home, that Meghan managed to take a tentative breath. For a while, life returned to a semblance of normalcy. The notes stopped, and Meghan began to regain some of her lost confidence. 2 weeks passed, and Meghan cautiously allowed herself to socialize again. One night, while out with friends, she met Daniel. Their connection was immediate, like two puzzle pieces snapping into place. Meghan felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in months, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself smile. Daniel was a breath of fresh air, and their burgeoning relationship brought light back into Meghan's life. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened. They decided to make their relationship official on social media, celebrating their newfound love. But the moment they changed their relationship status, the nightmare reignited with a furious blaze. Michael, the stalker, couldn't bear to see Meghan with someone else. He inundated her social media posts with sinister comments, insisting that they were destined to be together, and that Daniel was an interloper who needed to be removed. Meghan, alarmed and distraught, made the decision to block Michael and confessed her ordeal to Daniel. His protective instincts kicked into high gear, and he was appalled at the ineffectiveness of the police. The fear Meghan had tried so hard to escape returned, creeping into their lives once more. One ominous evening, as Meghan unlocked her front door, her heart stopped. Michael stood before her, an eerie grin on his face. "You don't need to be afraid of me, Meghan," he hissed, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. "We're meant to be together. You don't need him." Meghan summoned all the courage she could muster and, in a voice quivering with determination, she retorted, "Now you listen to me. I will never want a relationship with you." Michael's face contorted with rage, and he brandished a gleaming knife. Meghan screamed for help, her voice echoing through the walls of her home. Just as Meghan believed her life was about to spiral into the darkest abyss, the front door swung open and Daniel rushed in, his eyes widening in shock. "Michael, what are you doing here?" Daniel exclaimed, his voice trembling. "Meghan," her voice shaking with disbelief, asked, "You know him?" Daniel hesitated, his gaze locked with Michael's. "Yes," he finally admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "He's my brother. I haven't seen him in years. You're the stalker." Before Michael could respond, the shrill sirens of police cars wailed outside, responding to the frantic calls of neighbours who had heard the commotion. The police stormed in and swiftly apprehended Michael as he continued to shout menacing threats. Meghan and Daniel clung to each other, their faces pale with the shock of the revelation. As the truth about the twisted connections in Meghan's life became clear, they held each other tightly. Daniel whispered reassuringly, "Don't worry, he'll never hurt you again." In the aftermath of the ordeal, Meghan and Daniel's love grew stronger, illuminated by the darkness of their past. Michael was brought to justice, and Meghan finally found a sense of safety she had longed for. Their love story, once fraught with fear, triumphed over the horrors of the past, and they embarked on a new chapter of their lives together. If this video gave you value, I would love it if you could like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.